Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Enneagram Coaching. I'm Hillary, your certified Enneagram coach, and today we are going to be going over the mistypes of the type 7. But first, let's go get some coffee. Okay guys, so I have my coffee. Isn't she a pretty one? I love it. It's the Nespresso, I don't even know what kind it is, but I put caramel latte, I think, flavor in it, so it's really good. I like it. I'm a really big fan of caramel. But okay, I want to tell you guys, last video I went to Starbucks, my video of the mistypes of the type 6 to be specific, but I went to Starbucks in that video at the beginning and I got my normal drink, and to be honest, I really struggle with having a good solid drink, like go-to drink from Starbucks. It's just the closest coffee house to my house, and so that's why I go there. But I wanted to say, I got so many responses on the last video on everyone else's favorite coffee or even tea or whatever it was. I loved it, and I think what I'm gonna do is in the next, like, I don't even know, next few videos, next series, I'm not for sure which videos yet, but I'm gonna go to Starbucks and I'm gonna try your guys' drinks. So leave me your drink that you get at Starbucks in the comment section below, and maybe I'll shout out your name, who knows. But I'm excited to try your guys' drinks and see if I can find a go-to for myself, because I have struggled for years with this. And even though I don't necessarily love trying new things, I'm willing to do it if it's gonna get me a go-to drink at Starbucks. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. And if you guys haven't even noticed, I've got a little bit of a new background going on. I'm gonna do a full reveal of my whole office on, I think, the video coming up this Saturday. We recorded the whole thing. Now, I haven't actually looked at the footage. I'm just hoping it's good enough footage to make a video out of, but I thought it was fun. My husband painted this room white, and it was just a long process, and we recorded the whole thing. So I'm pretty sure I will have that out on Saturday, and you'll see the full office reveal then. But until then, enjoy a little bit of this background. So I love it. I'm so excited. My vision came to fruition. One thing to know about me is this is the only room in my house that has pink in it. I am a wife and a mom, and I'm a mom of boys. And so this whole house is very neutral. I have some splashes of blue in it, but for the most part, it's neutral, except for this room. This is my room where it's like, this is mine. This is like, just the girliest room ever, and I love it. So, okay, this video is gonna be so long. Before we get started, don't forget to push the subscribe button and like the video if you do like it. I appreciate that. And let's get started into what this video actually is about. Why do people mistype? So today is the type 7's turn, and I'm gonna go through the 7 versus 1 through 9, all the types. We're gonna kind of compare and contrast all the types, if they're common mistypes or not common mistypes. But I would say the main reason somebody mistypes is if they take a test and they just think the test is gonna give them an answer. I think those tests aren't as accurate as we think they are, because I'm not for sure. This is what I tell the people that I coach. When you're gonna take the test, usually I have them take a test. Don't get me wrong. I think the tests are good, but I think they're good at eliminating like 5 or 6. That's what I use them for. And then usually we have like 3 or 4, you know, maybe even just 2, or that person's like, gosh, I could see myself in this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, awesome. And then the next step is we go over all their cores, their core fears, their core desires, their core weakness, their core longing. And we kind of narrow it down which one of those really, really, you know, is you. You know, our core fears are what we're running away from. Our core desires, what we're running towards. Our core longing, we've longed to hear that our whole life. Our core weakness, it's something we struggle with and we will continue to struggle with. It's a decision you have to make daily not to struggle with, I think. So that's just a little bit of why somebody can mistype. And if you want to know more just about the type 7, because I know you landed here, most of you are going to be thinking either you're a type 7 or be a type 7, but you want, oh, I want to know what those cores are, or I want to see somebody else that is a 7. I have tons of those videos already done. I'll link a couple of those in the description box below because I've already covered those. So, and we don't want this video to be an hour long. You guys already know I struggle with time on this channel. If you're new here, just FYI, I really struggle with keeping these videos short. But I love to give you guys information. I love to give you guys free information, stuff to help you find yourself. All right, so let's go. Let's start with the type 7 versus the type 1. Okay, so the type 7 versus the type 1. Now, this is not a common mistype, but they are connected by an arrow. The 1 goes towards the 7 and health. So it takes on some of those healthy attributes of the 7, and then the 7 goes towards the 1 in stress. So when they're under stress, they're going to see a little more of those average unhealthy traits from the 1. They can become more critical, judgmental, more like organized, but maybe not in the healthiest way sometimes. I know this type 7, I actually did a video with him, but he said when he is stressed out and he's going towards that 1, he starts like organizing his closets and organizing his bedroom and getting everything in order, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's a flag that he can know. Like, wait, if you're 7 and you're seeing those kind of things happen, while I think, okay, organization, that could be a good thing, look at the reason why. What are you trying to escape? What are you running away from? What are you stressed out about? And so that's what that stress arrow does for us. It helps us recognize when that happens. But the first thing I will say is a 7 is more likely to be running late than the 1. The 1s usually are on time. The next thing that would really make them different is the 1s are the most self-controlled and disciplined on the entire Enneagram. 7s are the most spontaneous and impulsive. They're the ones that are like, hey guys, I'm here, what do you want to do? Ha! And I guess it can be a stereotype though, because that's the 7 wing 6 more than the 7 wing 8. But the 7 at its core is still impulsive and spontaneous. And I'll say the 7s, they don't want to be limited. They don't want to be controlled. They need freedom. And that's kind of opposite of what the 1s need. And I would say if you are struggling between a 7 and 1, look at the difference on how they handle details. They handle them very differently. The 1 will focus on detail throughout the project and the task. They're going to be able to lock in, focus, and stay with it. And the 7s, they're not as big of fans of details. They're more wanting to like throw out ideas and, you know, like they will probably give somebody else the job that needs the details part. They're going to be the ones that are like, oh, let's do this, let's do that, let's do that. This sounds awesome. And that's great. We need that. We love that. But I will say that's a difference between them and the type 1. Okay, so let's move right into the type 7 versus the type 2. This one actually can be a common mistyping, believe it or not. They are the 7, the 2, and the 9 actually are all in this like positive triad, this optimistic triad. And so the 7 and the 2 can look alike here. They tend to both have a positive outlook on life, and that actually will depend on the level of health they're in, but for the most part, 2s and 7s have that in common. I would say they both want to be liked. They both can be upbeat, they both can be active, and they both want others to be happy. And this is where it gets tricky, because I would say a social 7 can look like the type 2 the most, because they can sacrifice their need to have and get and gain what they want on behalf of the group. And so that social 7 is going to be able to sacrifice easier for the good of the group. This is temporary, but it does happen, and also they will want to be recognized for doing this too. And so that actually could, you know, differentiate the 7 from the 2, because the 2 is not going to want that attention. They're not going to want everybody to know and have that attention on them. And the last thing I could think of between these two is the 7 is in the head triad. So their first instinct is to think about it and to process in their head, and the 2 is in the heart triad. And so their first instinct is feelings. And so if you're trying to decide between the 2, ask yourself, do I process first? Because you're gonna have both. But where do you go first? Is it a feelings thing or is it a thinking thing? That could help you know if you're 2 or 7. Hope that helped with that one, but let's move on to the type 7 versus the type 3. So this one is one of the most common mistypes. A 3 can think they're a 7 and a 7 can think they're a 3. Both are very future focused, forward moving and energetic, so they have that in common. And then they both are in that aggressive stance. And if you don't know what a stance is, I'm gonna link that for you, because it's a really important video to watch if you are trying to decide your type still. And so the 3 and the 7, they're both in that aggressive stance along with the 8. So 3, 7, and 8 are in what we call aggressive stance. Sometimes it's called an assertive stance, whatever it is. It's not a negative thing. It's just how they get their needs met. They will move towards the world versus the other two stances. And so anyways, I'm linking that video if you'd like to watch that video. It's a good one to help you with that. And to figure out if you're a 3 or a 7, we're gonna need to go a little deeper and look at what drives the type 3, and what drives the type 7. And I would say this is all assuming you already know the cores of both types. Like I said at the beginning of this video, if you are trying to decide between the two and you've already read the core longing, core weakness, core desire, and core fear of the 3 and the 7, you're still a little confused, then we go here. The 3, their drive is success, achievement. They're gonna wanna have goals in life. They're gonna wanna take action immediately. They want a plan with action. And the 7's drive is more about dreaming and thinking and coming up with those ideas. And they want a plan and they need a plan too, but they can be the ones that will lose focus if it gets boring or mundane or anything like that. For the 7, they're gonna jump off that goal. Versus the 3, they're just so forward moving. Even I know my son, he'll have these like blinders on. He's like, I can only see the goal and I can only move forward. Doesn't matter if it's boring, doesn't matter if it's mundane, doesn't matter. They want that goal, they want that achievement and that success. And the 7, like I said, so even though they both want a plan, the 7 isn't as like move forward with the goal and take action. A 7 more than likely will want a team, and the team members will help them take action. So hopefully that didn't confuse you more and it made sense. So, but let's move on to the type 7 versus the type 4. Okay, so this one on paper, the type 4 and the type 7, they actually look like opposites. Because why? A 7, they run away from pain or sadness more than anyone else. And the 4, they're gonna run towards it. Maybe run is the wrong word because it's not like they're seeking out sadness and pain and all of that, but I will say they're just not afraid of it. They'll move towards it, it's okay. It's not something they're afraid of, versus that 7 is like, that's what they're running away from, is pain and stuff. So, and I'll say that 4, like I said, they move towards it, and especially in their own pain or even the pain of others, they're gonna move towards it. They're gonna wanna go through it and figure it out and process it and get to the other side of it. So that is a big difference between the type 4 and the type 7. Okay, so there is one major reason why a self-preservation 4 might think that they're a 7, or a 7 maybe would think they're self-preservation 4, and that is because the self-preservation 4 is called the sunny 4. They're more upbeat, they're more energetic, they are excited and happy. And not to say the other two types of 4s aren't, they are, but it's not. The self-preservation 4 takes it to a different level and can look like a 7. And actually, I've done a video on, her name is Miranda, she is a sunny 4. And if you haven't seen it and you want to know what a sunny 4 looks like, go watch that video. It is, honestly, she, to me, even looks like a 7, but when I talked to her about her core fears, her core desires, her core weakness, and her core longing, they align so beautifully with the 4. She just is like, no, I am a 4. And you know, all the 4s, they deal with suffering differently. The self-preservation 4, the social 4, and the sexual 4, they deal with suffering differently. And that self-preservation 4, which is the only one we're going to talk about because it looks like the 7, they deal with suffering, but they suffer in silence. It's just not obvious to everybody. And so that is a difference between those 3 types of 4s. I feel like I've gotten off track, so let's keep moving forward. And the last thing I want to say is they're in different triads. And so that 7 is in the head triad. I've already said that. And the 4 is in the feelings triad. So they both process differently. That 7, again, processes with their head first, and the 4 processes with their heart first. And so if you're trying to decide between the two, see how you process things. Are you like thinking about it? Are you like feeling it first? All right, so let's move on to the type 7 versus the type 5. Okay, so this one, it's not common, but they do have common traits. Both are in that head triad, and so they both think first, and they're both curious, and they want to explore new things. And so the 7 and the 5 have that in common, and then also they go towards each other in their arrows. And so the 5 goes towards the 7 in stress, and the 7 goes towards the 5 in health. So when they take on those kind of behaviors, they probably can look a little similar. But a big difference is a type 5, they isolate and they withdraw for long periods of time, especially when they are researching a project or trying to learn new things, gathering knowledge. They can isolate and withdraw for a long time. And the 7s, it's a struggle for them to stay in any one place for a long time. So that is a major difference between the two. That 7, they want to be on the move, go, explore. They're way more about getting their needs met out in the world, doing things. And I think a 7 might think like, if they have to stay in one place for a long time, it might get boring or mundane. So they're probably not going to want to do that. Even when working, like I know some 7s and they've told me this is true, but when they're working, they can't stay in any one place for long periods of time. And so they need to, maybe they start off in the office, you know, and then they're like, okay, I'm gonna go get coffee. And then they work there for a few hours and they're like, okay, I'm gonna go to lunch. And so they change places again and maybe go back to the office, but they kind of have to move around every few hours. At least that's what a few of the 7s in my life have told me. So I think that's a big difference between the 7 and the 5. Another difference is 7s are optimists, right? And 5s, they're more cynical, I would say. And I think a 5, now, they're not necessarily judging, but they're analyzing. They're not necessarily looking like for the best in people versus that 7 is probably looking for the best in everybody. 7s, they're super friendly. They can make friends easily and instantly. They love to talk, they love to listen. And the 5s, they are more likely to withdraw and observe. And I would say, especially if they're in an unfamiliar place or like around people they don't know, they're definitely gonna hold back and observe. But if it is with people they trust, they do let go and they do become more relaxed and friendly. But I would say only a few people get to see that. The people they trust get to see that. It's so awesome. I have a 5 for a son, a type 5 for a son. He's 17. And so I see it all the time, but I do notice when we're out and about at places he doesn't really know, he does tend to get really quiet and withdraw. Okay, so let's move on to the type 7 versus the type 6. These two don't mistype often, but I actually have heard of some people saying, I don't know if I'm a 7 wing 6 or a 6 wing 7. So that definitely does happen. And they're both in the head triad. So they both have that first instinct of thinking. I would say a difference is a type 7. They reframe everything negative that comes their way. They're going to reframe it more than likely and put a positive spin on it. Some of that is because their core fear is they don't want to be trapped in emotional pain. And so they're going to reframe any of that comes their way and make it super positive. 6s, they don't reframe negative situations. They are more just realist. They're thinking about it. They worry a lot. They are those worst case scenario thinkers. They're not trying to make it better. They're trying to think it through and make the best decisions so that maybe something catastrophic doesn't happen. And I would say both of them deal with fear differently. The type 7, they run from fear, right? Instead of dealing with fear, they go after fun activities and adventures. They don't want to deal with it at all. But they have it. And the type 6, they respect fear. They're careful and they're on guard and they're always watching. And so they have a respect for it versus the 7 are like, no way, I don't want to deal with it. And they're running away from it. And the last thing I would share between these two is the 6s, they're always thinking about what can go wrong, right? I already shared that, worst case scenario thinkers. 7s, they're never thinking about what can go wrong. They're just thinking about what could go right and moving forward. So that's a big difference between the two. So let's move on to the type 7 versus the type 8. Okay, so this one, the 7 and 8, they actually can be mistyped. It's a common mistyping because the first reason is they have wings involved. 8 wing 7, 7 wing 8. And so that can kind of make them appear similar at times. And then also they're in that assertive stance, right? Or aggressive stance. And I would say both of them, they know what they want and they do not hesitate to go after it. And that's kind of like, they get that from that stance that they're both in. The difference I would say if you're trying to decide between the two is maybe look at those triads, the gut triad and the head triad. The 8 is in the gut triad. They trust their gut the most out of all 9 types. They really process almost everything through their gut. They have that gut instinct. And then the 7 processes through their head and their thinking. They are the ones that are going to process data super quick with their minds and then just move on. They have highly active minds actually. 7s are optimistic. You know, I've already said it. I've already said they're optimistic. I've already said they're reframers. They reframe a lot. Kind of have that like, don't worry, be happy kind of attitude about them. And then you go to the 8, they're super realistic and they're rooted really firmly in the ground. And I will say, like, don't get me wrong, an 8 can be optimistic, but an 8 might say, you know, yeah, I could be optimistic, but I live in the real world. And so that kind of, to them, might make them different than the 7. Okay, so last one, guys, 7 versus 9. And this one's super familiar to me because a lot of you have said I look like a 7. I think early on when I started doing YouTube, I appeared more like a 7 than maybe I do now. But I was trying to go, hey guys, how are you doing? What's up? And I realized like, yeah, I am like that, but not like a 7 is. And so I am optimistic. I'm super optimistic. And so that can look like a 7. I definitely reframe. So that can look like a 7. Again, remember the type 2, 9, and 7, they're all in that optimistic triad. And so all 3 of us are like that. Okay, so I'm going to give you a big difference though. A type 9, they merge with others. And depending on their level of health, they usually don't know their own wants, their own needs, their own desires. I can attest to that. That speaks my language. I have struggled my whole life to really know, like, who am I? Who am I? Am I okay? Are people going to accept me? So 9 can struggle with knowing, like, who do they want to become? I did not know this. I didn't know the path I wanted to be on. And really ask myself what I wanted to do until my mid-30s. And it took a catastrophic event for me to look inward and to realize that I wasn't living the life that I truly knew I was supposed to be living, the path I knew I was supposed to be on. And leading right into the type 7, they don't deal with merging. They don't really merge because they know who they are, they know what they want, and they go after it. And so that's a big difference between the two. And another really big difference, that this is a huge difference to me. If I was trying to decide between a 9 and a 7, this one I would know right away. I fit in the 9 category and not the 7. And what it is the 7, they don't mind if people interrupt them. They enjoy it. To them, a conversation with somebody is an active conversation. It's give and take and yes and go and build off of what we're saying and go from there. And so they don't mind it if you interrupt them. They're not going to be like, wait, I'm not done talking. They're going to listen, and then they're going to build on that, and then listen and build on that. And so it's very give and take, that conversation. And the 9, they are completely opposite, and I resonate with this so much. They hate being interrupted because they already struggle with their presence not mattering. And so if they're talking and usually they're sharing from their heart and somebody interrupts them, they all of a sudden withdraw and feel like, oh, you weren't listening. Oh, my presence doesn't matter. You don't actually care what I'm saying. They take it personally and it feels very rude to them. And so if you're struggling between a 9 and a 7, ask yourself, how would you handle interruptions? I think that can help you. It definitely helps me because I know I get super offended and hurt if somebody interrupts my conversation because I right away am like, I didn't even get to finish. You don't even know the whole story. And usually a 9, we start at the very beginning. And so it does take us a while to get to the actual whole piece of the story, but we really, really, really desire you to listen to the whole thing and give us that. But that is a big difference between the two. So, all right, guys, that is all I have today. To me, this went super fast today. I don't know how long this video is actually going to be, but I feel like I did good. I feel like it might be shorter than, you know, all my other ones, but we'll see. Who knows? You just never know with me, right? But in the end, I just hope this helped you. I hope this helped you understand. If you came into this video going, am I a 7? Am I not a 7? I hope me going through each type helped you know what your dominant type is. And so that was the purpose of this video, to kind of just kind of take that dominant type of the 7 and go, okay, we're gonna put it against every type and see what happens. So that's what we did today. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, give this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it, guys. And don't forget to subscribe down below. But that's all I have for today. And until next time, bye, guys.